Good afternoon. My name is Kamani Terry, and the topic I chose for my action plan project was immigration. I chose this topic because I wanted to gain a further and more personal insight understanding on how immigration has been affecting families, specifically more so focused on children whose parents are immigrants. The two interviews that I held were with a early 20s male, and then the other was early teenagers female. Both the male was born in Vietnam, but came to the United States later on in his life, around the early ages of his life, and then the female was born in America, but is a child of immigrant parents. These interviews helped me gain a little more information about how these children think of where not just on a political standard, but more on a personal standard. I was able to gather some information about what they do with their culture, the things they do, like and to say an example, one of the examples is the Chinese New Year, and it is still a very prominent holiday for them, and it's something important to their family as children of immigrants. And another thing that they both had in common was having their own altar in their home, worshiping Buddha with their family, that kind of stuff. But the one difference that I think I saw between the two was that the level of maturity that they had. The older male, obviously older, of course he's going to have more maturity, but I think also because he is the primary English speaker in his house, he is expected to do more than what he has to do than the rest of his siblings. While the female, she's the second born child, she doesn't really have a lot of weight on her shoulders like her older sibling. So I interviewed these two because I wanted to gain a more understanding of how they felt about their parents as they are immigrants. And the one thing that I got in common from between the two was that their parents pushed them and themselves to the point where it as long as they got what they needed, then they got what they needed, even though like it's tough love at some point, but they have never been without, and even when they were without, they found some way to make it better for their family. And that's the view or the answers that I got from asking their children how they felt, what their parents did for them. Did it matter? Like, what sacrifices did they have? And I think the occurring thing that I also saw with both interviews was that I was able to ask about how life in Vietnam was, if they have visited, and both have visited and been there. The older male was obviously born there, so he knows a little bit more about Vietnam. But I think also just them still visiting Vietnam, even though that they are citizens of the United States here, shows that they still haven't left their roots. They still carry on the traditions. They still do everything they can to still stay in touch with that side of the world, even though it's so far away. Vietnam is a third world country, but I have heard like it's not as bad as it may seem for it to be a third world country. But still, at the end of the day, their families, their parents chose to be here in America because they saw a better opportunity for themselves and their family, and have more family coming over right now. And I also even asked how these children, well, more so the older male, how he felt about Trump's policies, anything like that, about immigration, and did he fear for his family or anything like that. The general answer was honestly a no. Like, he feared for his family, but he knows that he's been through all the processes. He knows family members that have already been through the process the legal way. So even though he said he wasn't really into politics, but personally, I feel like he should keep up with it a little bit more. But at the end of the day, he felt like him and his family were going to be okay because they have each other, and they know that at the end of the day they went through the legal way to make sure that him and his family can stay here in America. Overall, I think this was a very unique experience. It gave me a little more insight about Vietnam, its traditions, its people, like everything just in general. And even though like most of the political talk I didn't really want to bring up, but still it was very eye-opening to hear what he had to say, because these kind of discussions need to be talked about. And I think this experience was something that I personally can't relate to, but I can empathize with it. And I just hope that others could see, like, we should empathize with those who are here legally or illegally, and try to show a little more compassion, that kind of thing. And thank you so much.